The Never Quit Podcast, sponsored and hosted by Quotes Jungle, with your host, Quote.
Welcome to another edition of the Never Quit Podcast. On this episode, in the studio, I have with me CJ. How you doing, CJ?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. How was the drive over here?
It was great. Little traffic, not bad though, for Denver.
Okay. Tell us what CJ stands for.
Carolyn Janae, actually.
Carolyn Janae.
I don't look like a Carolyn, do I? No.
Not really.
Not really at all.
You consider yourself a researcher. Tell the people what that means.
So I think it's coming from multiple sources too. And not only just like people think you just look online or you maybe read some here and there, but it's also experience. Researching is experience and talking to people about their personal experience. For example, like if it's in a foreign country, you need to talk to people that are actually there that can give you. And then it's really this collection of data that you've developed yourself to be able to say that you've researched that topic. So it's much more beyond the books and online. It's experience too.
Where would you say some of your main sources are that you get some of your resources from?
It depends on which topic we're talking about, but really it's there's different search engines you can use actually, like Yandex and Dogpile. Google will like hide things from you, for example. So they'll hide like things that they don't want you to see. So it's looking at all those. So yeah, you go to Google and you look at that, and then you compare with Dogpile, you compare with Yandex, and then you look into research from other people that are experienced in what you're looking into. So that's also like looking into articles that are written by whether it's a professor or another athlete or a politician, whatever the case may be, and then comparing everything together. So there's really not one source, I would say, but it's a collection of so many.
When I say child and rescue services, what comes to your mind?
So a lot of evil things, to be honest, like child and rescue services is like CPS and things like that are super, I don't even know the word for it. Like they're so inaccurate in their pursuits, and they're so, I think their resources that they have or that they say that they have, they don't actually, or they can't actually enforce. So what comes to mind when you say that is so much evil. I hate to say that, but like just so much evil.
Why do you care about children so much?
That's a great question. I think that they're some of our most vulnerable, and I'm realizing that through our generation and everything that's going on, we're so responsible for the future. And when you look at our generation or millennials in general, like we've fallen so short that our future is kids, and I'm an aunt of 5. So, I mean, that softens your heart every time, even the 5th time, it's like you get softer and softer and softer and just love kids so much more. So I will always have a sweet spot for kids. But it's nothing as personal as you think. I'm not a mom, unfortunately, yet myself, but I just love kids, and their innocence just really pulls at your heartstrings. They need us more than anybody out there.
What are you doing right now currently in your life that's proven that you do love kids?
I think the missing child space is really what I've been focusing on, going out there and risking your safety, risking everything for kids that you don't even know, for families you've never met before, as if they're your own. Sometimes there's not the urgency from police or law enforcement, even at the federal level. It's so frustrating because this situation is so dire, and you hear a mom, crying on the phone with you, and that's missing a child, right? And you jump in as if you're a part of the family, just like that, and you take a lot of risks, and you take a lot of heat, both publicly as well as with law enforcement sometimes, to jump in and try to locate them. And you pass off that information to law enforcement or even, again, federal level, to where these details and investigation and investigative research may, find this kid and hand it off, and they may take credit, which is fine, but I think putting yourself in danger for someone or a family you don't even know is probably the best example.
Explain to the people who aren't familiar with what you actually do, to explain why you know as much information that you just explained.
I just kind of jumped into the space of preventative trafficking. I really don't have the resources yet or the funding to do, like sting operations, or more so like going in there and knocking some doors down, right, and having military backup and all that, or setting up what pedophiles will think is a location where they're going to be purchasing, their disgusting attributes, I guess I'll say. But the missing child space is where it's really neglected, where it's a direct gateway into trafficking. So I'm doing what's called preventative trafficking strategies. So it's building resources and different strategies to help prevent it altogether. Because once kids have been trafficked, to locate them past then is like almost impossible. I mean, it can be done for sure, but it's not only expensive and time consuming, but every hour, every minute that goes by when a kid goes missing is so detriment to locating them. So for me, it's completely getting ahead of that entire event and trying to get ahead of what's causing trafficking, or how are we falling so short and millions of kids a year going missing. So it's just building more efficient strategies to prevent the whole scenario altogether.
What's the name of your organization that you're using your energy and all that on?
It's called Our Town Foundation. So it was founded, I think, almost 2 years ago now. So it's crazy to think about that. But I really just jumped in, and everybody's like, there's no way you could do that, and you're not going to be able to help in that realm. And it's not easy. I'm saying it's not easy at all, especially emotionally. But it was disturbing how easy it was to get involved, and how easy it was to see the shortcomings of the urgency behind law enforcement taking those cases seriously when, kids go missing, what's being done. And mostly you get the reaction that's like, oh, we're looking into it. And that's just not enough. So it's kind of doing the grunt work as the bottom feeder of what the cops aren't doing, and talking to people, talking to families, talking to friends to figure out the story behind it to help you locate them.
How do people describe you?
Ruthless, I would say. I think dedicated, but some people hate me, some people love me. Honestly, like it's kind of it's the best of both worlds. Not a lot of people are like just even keel with me, but I think ruthless would be a good description.
Maybe give us a couple examples of why people would consider calling you ruthless.
When people tell me like, you're not going to do this is impossible, you'd have to be A, B, or C to make this happen, I take on those scenarios and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to go straight for that. And no matter the risk, no matter the danger involved, I'm going to do it anyway. And I love proving people wrong. So I think that when they have this essence of being ruthless, it's like, I don't take any shit. Can I cuss on here?
Yes, absolutely. How would you describe yourself?
An asshole with a big heart. If you're really asking. Truly.
Have you ever been unfairly criticized?
Unfairly criticized? Oh my God, yeah. I mean, like, especially when it comes to sports entertainment, right? Like, people will think one thing about you, or they'll assume all these things. But also, when you're out there doing the impossible, people will cope with you being able to do that. And let's say they tried and they didn't. And they'll make up all these excuses as to how you could have done it. Oh, she has an inheritance, which I don't. Oh, she has handouts, which I don't. And it's like they'll automatically, I think it's a coping mechanism to deal with what they wanted to do but couldn't do. And so all the time, people are like, oh, you're this and that. And it's like, have you had a conversation with me to ask me yourself, or have you just built this on assumption? So all the time.
What are some things that you do for fun to unwind when you're not working on trying to find children or being athletic and staying in shape?
Yeah, that's probably what I struggle with the most, honestly. Like, I think workaholic is an understatement of that. But I like to snowboard. I like to be outdoors. I love the cold, which most people don't. But yeah, I try to get to the mountains as much as I can, spend time with friends and family. But I need to do more of that, to be honest. That's a big piece that I'm missing.
Some people will consider you a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's because of the conspiracies that have allowed me to expand into the unknown. And I think that, theorists take what we know now into what we don't know yet. And that's expanded us as a civilization. So it's probably the biggest compliment you could give someone. I mean, if I were like a registered theorist, I mean, if I think of theorists, I think of Einstein, I think of all the innovative minds that have expanded us and advanced us as a civilization. So it's probably the biggest compliment you could give someone like me.
Who's somebody that you look up to, or name me a few people that you look up to, male or female? They can be dead or alive.
Bethany Hamilton is one, Abraham Lincoln. Bethany Hamilton, it's like whenever you think about the restrictions that you have, it's like it takes you, your desk, your mind, maybe the internet to make things happen. I think I learned that when I did the the whole child space is what I call it, preventative trafficking. It's like I made all that happen at a desk with the internet. My first case was in New York, and it's like you have everything you need within you. And then you look up to these people that they don't even have the limbs that you have, and they've done more than you. Like, what's your excuse there? So then Abraham Lincoln, abolishing slavery and formulating a completely different political party based on that is so inspirational. So I think between the two, those would be my top two.
I want you to share with us on the podcast something that you've never told people publicly that you're willing to share with us.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of like financial hardship and risk that I've taken to make this happen. And I wasn't going to share any of it until I had overcome it, because I didn't want to come out there like I'm a victim of my own choosing to do this. But now that I've overcome all that, like, there's a huge story behind how I made all this happen and like the risk. And there's, certain companies or organizations that were like exiled me for this. And like, I haven't shared those emails. I haven't shared those stories. I haven't dropped company names yet, like any of that, because again, I wanted to overcome it. I wanted to have a story as a victor so that people wouldn't be, scared or shy away from doing, even if it's not the same focus that I have, but, scared to do their own thing in their own way, fearing failure. So yeah, there's a ton that went into that. I mean, I like ate out of vending machines for a while to make this happen. Like just crazy, embarrassing stories. But at the same time, I think it'd be motivating for people to know now overcoming that.
Have you ever wanted to give up
Oh my God.
and quit?
Yeah. Oh, like there's been times where you're just like literally on your knees in hysterics. Like, what is the point? Why did I do this to myself? Like I have to say it like this, like coming out conservative and then Christian too in this world, like the backlash that came with that. Like sometimes I would sit there and think, if I wouldn't have done that, if I wouldn't have come forward in my beliefs, everything would have been so much easier, for me. So yeah, there's some times where you're like, is this going to pay off? Like, do good people, receive some kind of award for what they've done? It's not that you're after it for the reward, but you're absolutely punished for every step of the way. So it seems unfair, but never fully given up. But have I questioned it? Absolutely. Every step of the way. Absolutely.
Your beliefs are Christian, correct?
Yes.
That's safe
correct.
to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, was there a moment in life that you've experienced thus far that made you be more vocal about your experiences and how you feel in life about everything, or what you want to share?
I grew up really Christian. Like I would describe it as almost like radical or extremist. Like I went to Awanas, which was like a Wednesday night little powwow for, Christian kids, and then Sunday school on top of that, right? And there was for me, like growing up in that, there was nothing to apply yet in my life. I hadn't had substantial enough experiences to apply those learning things that we did, twice a week. So I completely turned my back on the whole religious perspective for a while. I wasn't like a Satanist or anything, but I was, I guess, an atheist, holding complete disbelief in God. And then I experienced God myself, like the presence of God, the overwhelming sensation, an undeniable proof for myself. And so, and he placed me in this seat to do what I'm doing with kids, and it sounds crazy. I get that. And if I could hear myself like 3-4 years ago saying this right now, I'd be like, how cheesy, how ridiculous. But yeah, there's been significant, just this overwhelming presence of God. And so I think the more evil that's shown out there, like what they don't realize, what they're doing in benefit of the contrary is, the more evil that's shown, it proves God, right? So we're getting kind of like, is it okay to get all religious and spiritual?
You can say whatever you want. This is for me to listen, you to express how you feel. There are no wrong answers.
There's a totally different side, I think, when it's something you can personally relate to and having experiencing the presence of God, and then like him assigning you. And there were some moments where it was like that was when I thought I was going to give up, and I would be like in hysterics on my knees, like, you told me to do this and I'm doing it. Like, where are you? And the next day, boom, something would hit. The next day, boom, he would show up and I'd be like, okay, I see you every single time. And it's like, there's undeniable proof of that. But that's why I appreciate all this evil in the world right now, because they're proving God.
So what keeps you going?
Oh gosh. This is selfishly, honestly, like I think depression is unfulfilled purpose. I really do. I feel selfish saying that, because it's like, it's not that I'm doing any of this for myself, but it's also cured me and healed me as a person to give back in ways that I didn't plan to, right? Or I didn't study to through education or anything. But every time there's a win, so whether it's finding a kid or just, helping someone with an exemption, whatever it is, there's this small win that is so much bigger than fame or money could ever bring to me. So it's like that feeling is what keeps me going.
If you could interview anybody and sit in a room with them, who would he or she be?
Joe Biden. Is that okay?
There's no wrong answers. Give me the 3 questions you would ask him. When
did you sacrifice common decency for political recognition? That's one. Then I would ask, what happened to you? What changed from 47 years leading up to presidency for you to change so much? Something about him is just completely different. And then to explain his racist comments. Racist comments, can you go in a little bit more detail? You don't have to give me a perfect example, but I want the people to understand what your definition is of a racist comment. Totally. So, and I made this video of all these different examples, providing a eulogizing KKK members. The one that really bothered me was he made this comment. He was like, basically, if you don't vote this way, then you ain't black. And it's like public segregation to me, because it's like, you can't tell anybody based on the color of their skin that they can vote for a certain party or else they're not the color of their skin. To me, that's like as segregated as you could possibly get, and I think, so that's a couple. And then there was some remarks about gas stations and certain races being involved, and he thought he was in a different part of the country. And I have this video, I actually just reposted it, that I made 2-3 years ago now. And he also offended Kamala Harris for the busing systems. And she actually called him out during this speech and was like, there was a little girl that was involved in that. And Kamala Harris was like, that girl was me. And you were against, the busing systems. And so she was like, that directly affected me. So he's offensive, in so many ways. And I think that that's moving so far away from equality where we need to be. Who do you wish would pay more attention to you? Some of these big shows or talk shows or whatever, they won't bring me on because I'm so controversial that it's like they're worried about being affiliated. And it's like, I just wish that they would give me a chance to talk more about it, but it's almost like they're scared of it. So I think sports companies, professional companies that are anything related, whether it's sports entertainment or just athletic companies, and then some of the big dogs that I should be out there telling my story to that are scared of it. Who do you wish would pay less attention to you? People that haven't done as much due diligence in research. They pay attention to all the little things, but they don't pay enough attention to bringing forward the match the work I've done and bring it to me. But they pay so much attention to the color of my nails or what hairstyle I'm wearing. And I'm like, that doesn't matter, focus on what matters. What accomplishments are you most proud of in your life thus far? Starting a nonprofit, a 501c3, in one of the most impossible, avenues that you could possibly do, which is preventative trafficking. I mean, I don't know any females out there. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I don't know any females out there that are doing the exact work that I am. So I think that to be one of the first to do that, first as a private investigator and then going into private and executive protection to prevent trafficking, it just isn't really being done. And it's a huge accomplishment. If you're willing to share respecting the kid, the situation, your profession, your name, and your company, can you give the people a small story why what you do is important? There's so many details within each case, and a lot of the casework, most of which I have to keep confidential, but there are details where, you'll ask parents something like, where do they hang out on Saturday at 2:00? What do they do for fun? And also going into where would I find them? Where do they hang out with their friends? Do you know their addresses, the parents of the houses that they stay at, things like that? And they can't give those answers, and there's this neglect going on at home right now. And I think that's one of the major issues, one of many. And so those moments, it's like you're more impactful coming in, not knowing the family, not knowing the kid, not knowing what's going on, and gaining more understanding of this kid and understanding why they ran away to be able to help to locate them. You have to play this picture of possibilities, right? Why did they do this and what was the motivation behind it? So those moments are huge, and discovering that sensation.
So far in your line of work, what advice would you give parents that are warning signs that they might be going down in a bad direction, in a rabbit hole with somebody they shouldn't be communicating with and need somebody's service like yours, or get kidnapped respectfully?
The hard part for parents to hear, and I'll dish it to parents, and it's not a comfortable conversation at all. It's like not being a part of your child's life is the first and biggest component leading to this. Whether it's maybe they have a phone, but are you monitoring what they're looking at, what they're using, what accounts are on? It's sad when you ask parents, do they have social media, what accounts, and they don't know those things. So it's like there's zero monitoring going on. And so not being a part of your child's life is absolutely a direct gateway to them feeling neglected and needing a sense of belonging, which is the exact gateway for traffickers to come in or groomers to come in and completely take over that sense of belonging and give it to them. It's a very glamorous process too. They'll dish out thousands of dollars. I mean, you're talking designer bags. They'll pick them up in limos even. It's so much more glamorous than what a theatrical version that we, portray is. So it's neglect. And it could be not being a part of your child's life, not knowing what they love, not knowing how they feel, and not being a part altogether of their lives. That is the number one thing that will lead to a scenario like that.
So is it safe to say that parents should monitor their kids' phones, knowing all that information? And what's your recommendations on that? Because I'm pretty sure you'll get a lot of criticism from giving your advice.
Well, and that's the hard part, because it's like you don't want to be like stalking your kids, right? You don't want to be overbearing in that sense. But here's the thing: if you have had enough of an impact on your child's life, or they respect you enough where they can come to you, and that you as a parent can go to them and talk to them about anything, your impact on them should be greater than any outside influence, right? So it's like, it's not that you're reading through their messages. It's not that you're stalking them, but they should respect you to the point where you've had more of an impact on them than any outside source. So to be able to influence them to that point. So I don't know, what's hard is to help parents with what the rules are, where the fine line is in stalking, and then, monitoring in a place where they're providing safety to them. But I think it's like, if I were a parent, this is what I would do. I would say, yes, you can have these things, but I should be able to log in at any point and see what's going on and be okay with it. And I think if you're paying for the phone and the kid's under your roof, it's okay to do that, but you should never have to go and look, just like a relationship. You should be able to be comfortable with the conversations that you're having. But if your partner were to look at those conversations, would they be okay with it? It's the same thing as parents. If you respect your parents, if my parents came in and looked at what I'm doing, would it be okay? But again, your presence in their life should outweigh all of that as a possibility.
Random question. I'm about to throw you off. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
What's your favorite place to go fishing?
I really like to go to Evergreen. I really do. Like, people will be like, oh, there's all these cool things up in here, but like, I really like going up there. It's so close. And I can kind of like get away and escape and feel like I'm in the mountains without having to drive too far. So I like that. But like, I don't do much stream fishing. Like, I do pontoon fishing. So like, we'll go to Lake Granby, like all over the place. So I like the simple stuff. And I've only like barely tapped into fly fishing, but pontoon fishing is like, you're kind of adapting to that without doing it. So I'm all about the lakes and peace and quiet.
Have you caught a lot of fish?
I mean, yes and no. Sometimes I don't catch anything, honestly. I'm just there for the experience. But yeah, I've mostly caught rainbow trout, I'd say, at the height.
Can you name a situation in your life where you didn't quit and you're glad you didn't quit that you're willing to share with us?
The bulk of everything that inspires me is this, creating our town. There was every opportunity to stop, to quit. And it was threats. It was losing out on different opportunities, sponsorships, endorsements, acting as the face of certain companies. And no matter what, even through that, even through the backlash, even through, I might be exiled from corporate America. I might be exiled from any future opportunities. And even with that, I didn't give up. And I've never looked back with regret. Even the financial irresponsible decisions that I made, like, looking back, yeah, I've been able to dig myself out of that. But most people, I think, would have been like, this is stupid. What am I doing? And it was that thing. I've never given up, and I've never regret that.
Let's say you're stuck in a room. You have 3 things that you can have with you for 24 hours. What are those 3 things?
Sadly enough, it is like some form. We're so reliant on, Wi-Fi and a device, but like I've also built my whole life on that. So it would be a phone. It would be a weapon of some sort, and it would be a source of heat. So whether that be fire or something thermal.
What's your favorite weapon?
My favorite weapon, a 9 Taurus, honestly. I blindly chose this gun twice. So like they'll line up like 5 different guns and you don't know what they are and you shoot them to test them. And it was a different color. So I didn't know it was the same gun and I chose it twice. So Taurus 9.
What's your dream gun?
Dream gun. There's like a 911. It's like the People edition. It has like stars on the handle of it. And it's like metal. It's so dope. I love that one.
What's the biggest and most powerful gun you fired?
Oh, I mean, I've actually shot like a lot of different like bigger guns, but like I've shot like an AK, which was pretty powerful. It's like, and you're kind of holding it down because it's so heavy you can't really lift it up. But like, yeah, an AK, probably AK-47.
If you believe in this, and you clearly do, what firearm would you recommend that every American have in their home?
Shotgun. Honestly, you can't miss. Also, like an AR-22 is really comfortable to shoot. Smith & Wesson. And then a 9. Those are 3 I know, but like those are my top 3. Absolutely.
If you could travel back in time, in any time that you know of, what time and era in the world would you go back in?
Probably like 50s or 60s, where everything was so much more traditional. We didn't have females that were offended by men opening the door for you. Like it's weird. Like if I did believe in reincarnation, this is why, like I'll hear, songs, how songs or scents like make you think of something or bring up a memory for some reason. I don't know why, but there's certain songs, like old songs that will play and I feel reminiscent, which I can't explain, but there's this traditionalism that I was raised on, but like doesn't exist. So anywhere that could present that, where I'd feel like I was back in time, and yeah, I would die. I would die to go back in time, for sure.
If you can come back as any animal, what animal would you come back as?
Ooh, a tiger, for sure.
Why a tiger?
They're so badass. Like, are you kidding? They're beautiful, and they just don't care. Like that or a shark. Sharks and big cats are my favorite. They do not give a shit. They're like, listen, this is what's happening today, whether you like it or not. And I'm taking over without your permission.
What are you good at other than sports? Or what do you consider yourself good at?
Writing. That's like my thing. I wasn't good at math ever, and I hate math. I still hate it. When it comes to writing or like in expressive ways like that, like literature or symbolism, I love that stuff.
So do you write your own music?
We are working on that, actually, yes, on some lyrics, but I've been writing a book for like over 10 years, and it's been like slowly but surely. I need to publish it, but like it's basically everything is written, so.
Do you have a title for it yet?
Yeah, I think so.
You willing to share that yet, or you?
Yeah, it's going to be called Grit, I think, just Grit. That's like one of my favorite words.
Can you give us the top paragraph of the back of the book cover, or am I pushing it?
The back of the book. I don't know what I would write on the back, but it'll be life lessons, and it'll be like proving your self-doubt, basically. So I don't want it to be one of those cheesy like self-help books, but I do want it to be helpful to yourself. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Do you recall the first time that somebody identified you as whatever label race you identify yourself as, meaning a parent, a racial slur, and if you could share both with us, or one?
Yeah, like if someone either introduced themselves as such, or I heard that, is what you mean?
No, calling you, or
calling
what you
me.
called yourself, whatever you consider yourself.
Yeah.
If people can't see you,
yeah, totally.
you see what I'm saying?
Totally.
Do you remember the first time?
It was within the past, 3 years now, where I've never experienced so much racism. And I get like they'll call you a white N-word now. Like I get that all the time. And I'm like, what? and or like honky, like that one, which like I'm not necessarily offended by it, but I just don't, like you said, and I'm 30. It's like in all 30 years of my life that wasn't happening. But I feel like we're living in an era where you are forced to recognize people for their race rather than who you are. And so I feel like that's been hurtful for everybody, not just for me, but noticing that, there's people out there forcing us to acknowledge that when our experiences have never led us there. So sad.
Who do you turn to when you're going through these dark moments and trying to justify why you're standing for this? Obviously, you pray to God, but is there a person or people that you reach out to?
I have a good support system in my friends. I will tell you, like, I've kind of become like an introvert somewhat. And I have to say, like, I kind of turn to myself. Like I exclude the out world and I look inner, like, and I kind of rely on myself for that, because I didn't do this for anybody else. I didn't do it knowing or thinking that I would have support externally. So I have to turn to myself. Aside from God, I have to turn to myself and understand why I started doing it in order to unravel why I'm still there.
What would you recommend for anybody who would want to help you in your line of work?
I would recommend diving in, how I got started in it and how it's become some successful is getting out there and talking to someone experiencing the realm that you want to pursue. So if in my case was, talking to families that are experiencing a missing child and understanding the consistencies in the shortcomings, whether that be within law enforcement and asking, what's been done, what hasn't been done, but then also talking to victims that have been recovered or sex trafficking victims and understanding what led you here. I ask even questions like, what do these what do they wear? What do they smell like? How tall are they? What do they look like? And I'm just comparing consistencies with every detail. So I think putting your boots on and getting in the middle of it as best you can to understand it, so you know where to provide solution.
You've referred to your company name a couple of times. Can you make that clear to the people what that is and what services you provide?
So it's Our Town Foundation. So really we're a voice for the voiceless, and this is in all different attributes. So this is within child protection. So that's from any realm, whether that's runaway space or preventative sex trafficking, but also the innocence against big pharma we've gotten into. We're getting into sustainability and protection of innocent lives. So anything and everything that could possibly fit with protecting the innocent and being a voice for a voiceless, with an emphasis on preventative sex trafficking.
Tell people how they can reach you, and mainly how can people help?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple different Instagrams. I have cj.dunning, and then I have another one, The Under Siege, which is really focused, nothing personal, but more so just business oriented with the trafficking space and news on that. And then you can, if you want to donate, you can. I have a PayPal link on my cj.dunning Instagram account, and then just staying in touch with me, because there's some big things in the works as far as funding, and I want to be able to bring on not only volunteers but other private investigators. So stay in touch with me is the biggest thing.
If you could say and reach anybody who has this opinion of you for whatever reason, not that you give a shit, can you explain to them how you're human like them and something you experienced so they can relate to you?
My message would be the reason for us having two different sides, or let's say you disagree with everything I'm doing, being able to disagree with one another is why we're free. And so I think that when that piece is taken for such granted, I think that they forced us to hate each other so that we're forced to turn to them. But take some time. If something is unfamiliar to you, where you don't understand it enough to critique it to that extent, get to know that person and get to know their experiences that have really shifted them into who they are, so that you can better understand. So get to know me, because I want to get to know you.
How can you be reached again?
cj.dunning or at The Under Siege on Instagram.
If you could fly or swim, which one?
Fly. I hate water. I'm so scared. I can't really even swim, honestly. I really can't. No, I'm serious. And I'm so scared of the water.
You're a fisher, but you can't swim.
Yes,
So
outside of the water.
You believe in life jackets.
Yes, I do. Pontoons. Pontoons.
Okay, tell me 3 people that I need to be familiar with that I may not be familiar with. Don't explain what they do, just say their names.
Okay, Tommy Vext. Let's see, who else? Jennifer Lynn. And I'm gonna go with the third one would be Carrie Lake.
If you were stuck on an island for a week, who would you absolutely not want to stay on the island with for a week?
Who would I not want to stay on the island with? Should I say this?
You can say whatever you want.
Hillary Clinton.
Can you explain why?
If I were, there's no one in the world I'm more scared of than her. And it's because of the presence of evil, and that's really all I can say. That would be my biggest nightmare for sure.
Who would you want to stay on an island with for a week?
Nick Owen.
I don't know who that is, but I'll
It's
do
my boyfriend.
I'll do research. Oh, okay. Shout out to Nick. I apologize.
That's okay.
In your life, you've done a lot of things. Can you tell us something that you've regretted in your life so far?
Yeah. It took me now 30 years, right, to figure out what ego means. And there's so much more beyond ego. And it just being, presenting yourself in arrogance, but ego is also surrendering yourself to forgiveness and so many other things. So not understanding what that is or understanding how to forgive or what the importance is has, been catastrophic to some meaningful relationships. And so going back, now that I know those things, listening to why people are saying things rather than what they're saying, and to, resolve some friendships that never needed to end, I think. So take the opportunity to not take things so personal and salvage those relationships while you can, while they're still here.
If people have listened to the interview this far along, can you explain, if you're willing to, if it's not too uncomfortable, what triggered you to help kids so much? Was it a personal experience, a friend, a family member, a story you heard, a case? And I'm not asking you for detail.
No, that's fine.
What was the big one that said, this is what I want to do, or I experienced this and I know what it's like?
It's okay to be personal. My first intimate experience as a little girl was not consensual. I'm not a trafficking survivor myself, or I've never been involved in that. But I think, that's what got me into wanting to pursue criminal justice and law in general, was my personal experience as a child. And me going to law enforcement made it worse. And so I think that really developed my need and want to get into the private sector. But I'm more a witness to the trafficking scene, and it's not just trafficking, it's this satanic ritual practice of some of our elitists that's not a conspiracy whatsoever. There's not a video, there's thousands, if not more. And I unfortunately witnessed one of many of those videos. And so I think putting that all together, this was kind of just my path. So that I've been assigned to.
So would you say respectfully, this is therapy for you, doing this a line of work, and that's why you're so committed to it?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, it's hard because you get so wrapped up in why me, why did this happen to me, and bad things happening to good people. But I think a great way of healing from maybe your experience or something you've seen that you can't erase is doing something to help. And that's the best healing aside from medication or therapy that you could possibly do.
Hey, one more time before we wrap it up. I don't mean to sound regurgitated. Tell the people where they can find you.
Instagram is the best place. So cj.dunning or the Under Siege, all one word, on Instagram.
This has been another episode of the Never Quit Podcast. Hope you've enjoyed your time with CJ like I have and got some more insight and information on her from what you've seen thus far. Thank you for your time. Peace.
The Never Quit Podcast, sponsored and hosted by Quotes Jungle, with your host, Quote.